everybody, we're the Babes of Bourbon. I'm Megan Rudder.
And I'm Eric Rudder.
And today we are not only celebrating the Packers getting into the playoffs.
Yes.
As we all knew would happen.
Big game Saturday.
Which we're looking forward to, but we're also continuing our bourbon finished in port barrels.
Yes.
So what are we trying today, Eric?
Today we are drinking Woodinville Port FInished Bourbon.
Mm-hmm. And I had never heard of Woodinville.
Mm-hmm. They are a craft, so they're a little smaller. I've heard of them a couple times, but never really paid any attention to them, really. Up until I saw that they were posted on Wisconsin Bourbon Club a few times, and I was like, ooh, I want to try that. And then your brother picked a bottle up for us.
He did. And this can be found at some local liquor stores as well as Total Wine if you're looking for the bottle. Based on our recommendations after this video. I have to say for 2021, I'm really looking forward to tasting more craft bourbons, smaller, local, some out of state, some out of Kentucky ones that aren't quite as popular, and saying like, hey, let me give this one a chance. How does it work? Yeah.
I also want to continue with the big names too.
Like, don't take this away from me.
But I agree with you. I want to continue to drink some of the craft and see where they are.
Yeah. And you know, I feel like it's really hit or miss sometimes with the craft breweries. We've had some experience with craft breweries for bourbon where it has not been a pleasant experience. Oh, guys, sorry. I'm just used to going to breweries.
We're from Wisconsin.
That's true too.
Know.
I've had a really bad experience at some breweries too, but craft distilleries. Thank you. Sorry, I was like, oh, I have bourbon. Let's try this. The notes on this are very peculiar.
I really enjoy it, to be honest.
Yeah, it almost smells like sherry. Like the alcohol sherry.
I've never had straight sherry, but I've had other like sherry finished things. Like, I'm pretty sure Scotch is what I've had sherry finish, and that one of the notes reminds me of that.
The notes on this kind of do remind me of a Scotch.
But then I'm also getting some cherry in there, and maybe a touch of chocolate.
See, I'm getting a little. It's something very similar to cherry. Maybe it's like a mixed berry with cherry, but it's not as like, hey, this is cherry to me. You said chocolate.
A touch of chocolate, like dark chocolate.
Yeah, like cocoa. Yeah. And then, honestly, I don't get a huge punch of oak.
No.
Or vanilla, which, you know, when you're smelling bourbon or whiskey or rye, you usually get one of those. I don't really experience that.
Which makes sense with it being finished in the port barrels. You are hoping to get some different smells and tastes out of that. And
this bourbon finished in the port, it's a 5-year bourbon, and then it is finished for an additional 6 months in the port. Ruby Port wine barrels. I remembered that from my research, guys.
And a little bit about Woodinville. They are a craft distillery, like we said, and they are out of Washington State.
Yes.
And I don't know how old they are, but
their website isn't like quite as up to date as some other websites, but I would say I wouldn't diss their product based on their website.
Yeah.
It's two best friends that started it, and they also they mentioned it on their bottles too. They use all of their grains from Omlin Family Farm in Quincy, Washington. So they are using local products. They're very proud of having it be craft from Washington State. As they should be. It's pretty cool. I want to take a sip.
All right. Enough of sniffing. Let's get to sipping.
Wow. Very unique.
Yes.
Did I say that last week?
I think you did. I think you said that you could tell that you're sipping Angel's Envy right away. But this one, to me, I'm getting that cherry. I'm getting a little chocolate. I can still tell I'm drinking bourbon just based off the mouthfeel and everything. You do get a little bit of oak in there on the mouth, on the taste, on the palate, whatever word you want to use.
This is so interesting because that oak and like that grainy rye taste that comes with a lot of bourbons, usually it's on the nose, it's in the taste, it's in the finish. I get nothing of that on the nose, and I get a huge punch of it in the taste, which I quite enjoy that. It's a staple of trying bourbon. But so there's definitely the cherry, berry, chocolatey. You can tell it's finished in port, having tried one last week as well. Yeah. But then it has those big punches of flavor as well mixed in.
Just based off of quick reactions, this one's a little more punchy in your mouth flavor than the Angel's Envy was.
I agree.
And you get a lot more flavor burst on this one.
That's a really good way to put it. Like a huge burst of flavor, which in comparison to last week, from what I recall, is that it had more on the nose, mild taste. And this one, I'm having more of a mild nose and, like you said, a big burst of flavor in the taste. I'm pretty impressed with this, honestly.
Yes. And the finish? What are your thoughts?
I don't mean this as an insult, but I do find the finish a little unremarkable. It's nothing that's like, oh, I don't like this. And it's nothing like, wow, this is really staying with me. It's a very, like, subtle, lingers for the appropriate amount of time, if you want to say that, for like the 3 to 4 seconds after, but it's not continuing for a really long time.
Yeah, I get like a 10-second finish. It's sort of weird. This is nose and that like initial taste. I can tell that this is heavily port influence, but then the finish to me goes to like that oaky finish. That lasts like 10 seconds. I
had to take another sip and I was just counting in my head. I can still taste it from that last sip if you're watching the minutes on the video. Yeah. Eric's right. It's at least 10 seconds.
It goes to like that traditional bourbon finish to me where you get a little oak, maybe a little vanilla, but the cherry and chocolate sort of goes away for me.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think for this particular bourbon, the taste is so unique and remarkable that to me, like, it blows the water out of both the nose and the finish because the taste is such a burst. It's very unique. I would recommend that you pick up a bottle and try it if you haven't.
Yes.
I'm becoming a fan of port finishes, I have to say.
It is $45. Ooh. So
for some reason I thought this was $60.
No.
And I was like, oh, it's $60. Yeah. $45. That's right where I wanted it to be. Great job. And for a $45 bottle, I mean, honestly, this bottle is very beautiful. The cork, the way they have it with the wood, it has kind of that old time feel, just being the rectangle. It's engraved in the glass everywhere on the sides. It's nice. It's something that I would be proud of having on my bourbon shelf if we had a bourbon shelf.
Yes.
That was displayed someday.
All right. So, final review. Nose out of 2.
Out of 2. I'm going to give it a 1. No, I'm going to give it a 1.25. And I'm going to pull out my calculator as I do my math. Because I have found that it's very difficult for me to do these mental maths.
I'm going to give it a 1.5. I really love the cherry.
Okay.
Maybe a little sherry chocolate. I enjoy it. So 1.5.
Very fair. For taste, again, out of 3 for taste, it's very unique. I would give it a 2.25 for myself. Haven't tasted anything quite like it before.
I'm going to be right there with you, 2.25. Make math hard for me.
Yeah. And then for finish out of 2, I'm going to give it a 1 because I thought it was right where it should be. And that's again out of 2. What about you? I'm going
to be right there with you. A 1, standard bourbon finish to me. It's not that complex, not complex. So right in the middle. A 1.
That's good. For pricing and availability, then out of 3 points, again, this is $45. Having it a total wine makes it at least pretty available if you're in the southern Wisconsin.
Yep, and I feel like if our Total Wine has it, if it's distributed to your state, you probably have it too. Mm-hmm. And at $45, it's aged 5 years. It's a craft distiller, so they're sort of getting off their feet still. Mm-hmm. And it's also finished in they do 2 barrels, so finished in another 6 months. I actually think the price is correct.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And they're not overcharging because they're craft or because they use 2 barrels or anything like that. I'm actually going to give it all 3 points on the price and
oh my gosh, that is gonna drive the score up. I love it. See, and here's the thing, guys. When I was doing my background, looking up about the distillery, I keep wanting to say brewery today. Beer on the mind, guys. When I was looking up the distillery, they did say on their website that this bottle was harder to find. However, I think that may be a little outdated because it is now around Wisconsin, but I'm not quite sure if it is available in other states. But on their website, they do mention that they've won 3 awards for their bourbons in 2020, which I think is awesome. And maybe will drive the price of this up, which always is a bummer. But I am going to give it a 2.75, which brings my total up to a 7.25.
You know what? Honestly, I need to steal this for a second. I've been sitting here trying to add.
And another cool thing about Woodinville, guys, is that before his passing, Dave Pickerel, the old master distiller of Maker's Mark, was actually the one that joined this distillery and helped them get started, helped them create their product. So right there with that name, this is going to be a really special, unique, and great product. So give it a try.
Yeah. David Pickerel, if you don't know, I know he started out Whistle Pig. He helped them. He had an influence in them. And I think a couple other distilleries, like craft distilleries, he really helped get them off their feet as well.
That's awesome.
What did you give it? Final score?
I gave it a 7.25.
I gave it a 7.75.
Ooh, so average 7.5 out of 10. That is decently high marks for us.
Yes, that is a buy. Especially if you
for $45, guys, get this bottle.
Yes, especially if you like those a little more sweet finish. But the nice thing about this one, unlike the Angel's Envy, this isn't overly sweet or anything. This is, I would just say, just finished. It doesn't bring in that
the sugary sweetness of it. You're absolutely right. I'm glad you called that out. It doesn't have I think the difference between when we talk about sweet bourbon and regular bourbon, I think about it as Weller. If you've ever had Weller, very grainy product, very bold flavors of oak and all the grains they put into it, but it doesn't have a ton of sugary sweetness, berries, chocolatey finishes. There's not too much of that within it. Where then if you go on the other side of a bourbon finished in port barrel like Angel's Envy or this Woodinville, you're going to get a lot more of the sweet flavors, a berry, a chocolate note, something from the wine that's being brought out of those barrels. That's not to say someone that loves sugary drinks is going to take a sip of this and be like, But yeah, and I think I may prefer sugary, not even sugary, I prefer the sweeter bourbons. And if it's not a sweeter bourbon, I like rye a lot. That's my flavor preference.
I like everything. I enjoy just trying everything out.
That's true.
That's an issue with
he loves
in the bourbon world. Once you getting to experiment, I mean, it's a blessing and a little bit of a curse because you want to try everything, but at the same time, once you're doing that, you can't buy the things you absolutely love as much because otherwise we'd be broke.
And we don't want to waste bottles. For all the bottles we try, we do have to finish them because we don't want them to go bad. But yeah, any final thoughts?
No, not at all.
My final thought is, guys, go out, buy some Woodinville. If not this one, another kind. Give it a taste, give it a sip, share it with a friend. Thank you so much for watching with us today. We really appreciate it. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, a share. Follow us on Instagram, like those posts too, and tune in next week to see what we have up our sleeve.
Woo! Go Pack, go!
Woohoo! All right, bye guys.
Bye. Have a great night.